Hello, I'm Joseph Tenges. I'm the founder of Ancient Craft Imports. We're the ones who bring in Guler beer, which is the beer from the 500-year-old brewery, craft brewery in Germany. Today I want to talk about a training that we do. I want to give you an overview of the training that we offer to restaurants all over the place, restaurants and bars. I want to show you the breakdown with 3 points that we work with to just help restaurants be their best when it comes to their beer selection and presentation. We highly recommend that you have a systemized draft lineup, or packaging lineup for that matter. That you have that worked out exactly which beers you want, which styles, and that you're consistent with that throughout the year. There's a reason for it, which is that it provides both a variety as well as a consistency in the beers that you offer. So that's point number one. I'm going to develop that here. Point number two is the story. Probably the most overlooked and underperformed idea we encourage restaurants and bars to think about and to work with. So I'll explain that more as we go along. And finally, point number three is menu pairing for beers. So let's start with point number one, which is the systemized draft or packaging lineup. What I have here is a breakdown. I'm working with 8 tap handles here. Of course, if we work with you, we'll work with the number of tap handles that you have to come up with a breakdown that would make the most sense for you. But dealing in a simplified way with 8 tap handles, our breakdown that we recommend is a 75-25% breakdown. The 75% is domestic craft. That's the bulk of what you work with. 25% are imports, and ideally craft imports. Why are we doing this and why is this important? Well, there are 2 points that are essential, that are so important to achieve in a beer lineup, whether it's draft or bottles. So those 2 points are, point letter A is kind of funky things that people are creating in the domestic craft world, and there's always something new coming out there to keep people engaged and interested, right? So it could be something as simple as that. When one IPA is finally served out, when you've depleted the keg, you replace it with another IPA, as opposed to bringing in something else and then not having enough IPAs on hand. And the same thing with your lager. Like, you want to have a craft lager there consistently. This breakdown, this consistency of your breakdown is very important. Keep your customers engaged and excited that there is always something new. There is always this variety happening. And even within the style, there's variety happening because you're bringing in something new all the time. But at the same time, you don't have suddenly 4 IPAs here, right? That sort of dominate everything, and then there's hardly anything left for other styles. You're keeping it within these various styles consistently. You're keeping that variety going. That's important for your customer base and for new people coming in, right? That they see that there's a lot going on there on your lineup. So when it comes to imports and craft, if you have only 8 tap handles, you want to dedicate 2 of those to imports, to import craft. What that means, of course, is since you only have 2, you're not going to have the same consistency that you have over here, right? Because you just don't have the numbers. What you're going to be working with then is you're going to be switching them up more often. So you're going to have maybe a Belgian wit to start with. So you start with this Belgian wit and a dunkel, let's say. Belgian wit here, a dunkel over here. Well then, at a certain point, your dunkel runs out, you may switch it out for a lager. And this wit runs out, so you may switch it out for a pilsner. You can vary them, you can change them around. You can try something really kind of crazy, like let's say a Rauch beer, a smoked beer from Germany, for example. So there's a lot that you can play with. Of course, there's lots of variety within the import world. That's how we recommend it. That if you only have 2, well then you're switching them pretty often between the styles, and that kind of leads to the next point, which is what time of year it is. Are we dealing with a summer or are we dealing with winter when you're making these decisions? Of course, in the summer, you're going to want lighter beers. On the domestic side, you're going to be more focused on pilsners, pale ales, maybe lagers during the summer months. Now, during the winter months, it will be different. Here, you're going to be swinging over to more of the dark beers. You're going to be dealing with stouts, dunkels, with maybe some heavy beers like an aged bourbon barrel stout. So that will dominate what you're doing here during the winter. And the same thing happens over here familiar in the winter with import section. You're gonna do more of the quadruples. You're gonna deal more with dunkels. You're gonna deal more with maybe the Rauch is gonna come more into play here in the winter months. In the summer months, it will be Pilsners and Kolsch, lighter beers, lighter lagers. Helles, a nice Helles would work well here. So that's the idea. I mean, it's going to depend on the season, but you want a template. You want to work with that template and stick with it, depending on time of year, but stick with the template, have that consistency so that your variety makes sense. Again, if we have our call and we're discussing putting this template together, helping you put this template together for you, then another thing that's really going to come into play is what type of restaurant are you? Are you a pizzeria or are you a steakhouse? If you're dealing in steak as opposed to sushi, that really changes things as far as what your lineup is going to be, what your emphasis is going to be on your lineup. A hamburger joint is going to be very different from a seafood operation. Well, keep that in mind. If you're doing it on your own, keep it in mind. I do encourage you, highly recommend that you come up with a template and you work with it. We can help you with that if that interests you. But of course, we take this into consideration. You know, what type of restaurant are you? What type of food do you serve? So all of that comes into the template of your draft or your packaged lineup. That's point number one. Point number two is the story. As I mentioned before, it's so often overlooked. Every brand has a story, every beer has a story, but most staff members don't have any clue about what that story is or that there even is a story. It's so important that your supplier provides you with those stories in a way that's easily worked with, that can easily be communicated. That's something, of course, that we as Ancient Craft Imports, we always provide that. We want to make sure that every restaurant, every bar that works with our beers has the stories, that they have it provided for their staff, a staff training that can then easily be transmitted to the customers. So yeah, I can't overemphasize that enough. It really makes a big difference, especially because it completes the experience. I mean, one thing that you want to have, of course, are really, really great beers. You want to have those fantastic beers that stand out, that make the difference, that make you stand out from everyone else. But you also want to make sure that you complete the experience for your customers. You want to make sure that your customers are not only drinking the best beers out there at your bar, but they're also experiencing the story behind those beers. That just resonates with people. It resonates in a huge way. So you want to make sure that those stories are known and easily transmitted for each brand and each beer that you work with. Talk to your supplier. Make sure they provide those for you in a format that is easy to work with. Point number three is menu pairing. We absolutely insist, make sure that every beer that comes in is paired with at least several items on your menu. It's your supplier that should be providing that breakdown, that marriage between the beers that they're providing and the menu that you offer. We know you're busy. We know that the life in the on-premise restaurant industry is incredibly busy. We don't expect you to figure out which beers are going to go with which menu item. That's something that we do. We specialize in that. Would love to, make sure that if you take on any of our ancient craft beers, any of the Guler beers, we're going to provide you that pairing service. It's going to be easy for your staff members in dealing with our beers. You should demand that of every supplier that brings you beer to say, okay, we'd love to have this beer. Make sure you tell us which menu items this beer goes with on our menu. And of course, when your menu is updated, we'll update that pairing to make sure that it's always to date with your current menu. Experience. The experience is everything, right? That experience it's something that is going to make or break your business. If you can provide the ultimate experience to your customers, they're going to go out and they will tell their friends about what a great experience they had at your place. Not only great food and great beer, but the staff was knowledgeable and they were able to tell them about the stories and they were able to pair the beers with the menu, right? It's not just good beers, it's the big picture. We're here to help with that. I mean, we love that. We love making that come together. We have ancient craft beers to fit in with your menus, and we love to be a help. We love to make sure that your staff is at the top of their game. So if you're interested in a presentation from us, it's quick and to the point. We can make that happen for you. We can pair your menus with our beers. we can give you the stories, and we can help you to systemize your craft beer lineup. So in any case, I'm glad to at least give you this overview of that hopefully will help you with your business. And yeah, if you want us to jump in and be more of a help, hit the button below, communicate with us, let's schedule an appointment, and hope to see you in a one-on-one session to help get your staff members to the next level. Thank you.